So China's first quarter performance is in focus as it represents the first period since the country reopened after 3 years of COVID restrictions. And the 4.5% year-on-year growth is a big jump from the 2.9% in the fourth quarter of last year and has beaten market expectations. Domestic consumption was strong, with retail sales over the quarter growing 5.8% year-on-year. In March alone, retail sales jumped 10.6%. Imports and exports of goods also rose, with the total value increasing 4.8%. As for the country's job market, the surveyed urban unemployment rate decreased slightly, but the jobless rate for those aged 16 to 24 rose to 19.6% last month from 18.1% in February. China has set out a GDP growth target of around 5% for this year. While some analysts doubt whether the growth momentum can be sustained, China's National Bureau of Statistics is optimistic about the country's economic prospects.
China's second quarter growth could pick up sharply due to the year-ago low base effect. With the rise of the base figure in the third and fourth quarters, the growth rate will drop compared to the second quarter. If the impact of the base effect is not taken into account, the annual economic growth is expected to show a gradual recovery trend.
Well, let's talk now to Xiaolin Chen, who's head of international at the investment management company KraneShares. Welcome back to the programme. Break these numbers down for us. We're coming off a low base because of pandemic restrictions. What can we read into these figures?
Thank you for having me on your program. We did indeed come from a bit low base, but if you look at year-over-year basis, China's GDP also grown over 4.5%. That's, very much in line, given it's only first quarter, like you said, Robin, earlier on, is the first full quarter since the relaxation of COVID restriction in China. What is most encouraging to see is the retail sales figure. Most of the sub-indices in the retail sales, like caterings, cosmetics, and then, even some of the entertainment areas all see a double-digit recovery. So it's almost, you see a V shape of recovery in this, retail sales sector, which is very encouraging and reassuring investors. Some of the questions they have on is China's reopening momentum is on track going from here. This is actually answer that doubts for many investors.
So how much of this strong growth is down to policies and how much is down to other factors?
I think policy is the main driver because overall corporates and households all feels positive because the tone from policymakers from China are very much pro-growth, pro-creating jobs, pro-private firms to play a bigger role in the economy. That's definitely helped the momentum. But on the other side, the revenge spending is actually slowly getting into the economy, get reflected in those numbers. So it is a combination of a policy, also a combination of, people feel more confidence with the potential growth from here, and that's made them feel more comfortable to spend a little.
So you talked about the strong retail sales. How important is domestic demand, Chinese consumers buying products at home, in driving this growth?
I don't have a doubt about China's consumer power at all. In the previous discussion, I think we shared our thoughts on you got to see a bit of the movements, flows in the real economy, job markets and also household potential income become more confirmed, more stabilized, and they start to spend. Spending is very important. I think consumptions in China going to be the key driver for the economy to recovery, which is confirmed in Q1's data. And you also see corporates, consuming or consumption is the total social financing picking up, loans number in March also picking up. That's also a fundamental drivers for potentially see job creations, and business movements and potentially income for Chinese household. And eventually the domestic economy itself, in our opinion, could be quite sufficient to keep China's economy going, given the global uncertainties the country faces.
So these figures have been significant somewhat because they represent the first full period since restrictions were lifted. Is China now at the point where the long legacy of the pandemic is in the past?
I would agree in full statement. It is in the rear view mirror, you say, in those status, and then now is full speed ahead and looking forward. If you see President Xi Jinping visit Guangdong last week or the few days before, give a very strong signals of pro-growth, pro-reform. Premier Li visited some of the unicorns in Beijing and the new IPOs, pro-technology self-sufficiencies. It now feels the whole country is focusing on how to grow China again from here, what sectors to focus on, and eventually, we have a strong believer, given the strongest and most great amount of the middle class that China has itself, would be sufficient for China to focus on its growth for the current stage.
Okay, Xiaolin Chen from KraneShares, good to talk to you as always. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Robbie.